Hey there, friends. Glad you're back. I'm here, Stephanie Bennett, with you in The Secret Place, and I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about what I have found in this Thomas R. Kelly book called Reality of the Spiritual World. Now, I have read to you upon occasion from another Kelly book that I absolutely love called Testament of Devotion, which is just in the top 10 of all my favorite, most enriching books. This one is also very good, and let me just read to you this paragraph and then we'll talk about it a little bit. I definitely would love to hear your comments, your thoughts, or your questions here. So Kelly writes, "It may seem as if I've been kicking over a great deal of religious furniture, offering criticisms not only of the traditional proofs for God's existence, but also of the validity of the mystical experience of the presence of God. But I was only doing what the great philosopher Immanuel Kant said he must do, destroy reason in order to make room for faith." James Bissett Pratt of Williams College traces religious development through 3 stages. The first stage he calls primitive credulity, is found in children and in primitive peoples. The second stage is a stage of doubt and criticism and is found in the years of adolescence and in sophisticated brain worshippers. The third, the stage of faith, is reached by those who have left beyond their childish belief in a big, kind man in the sky and have passed safely through the tangles of expanded intellectual vision which science, history, psychology, and philosophy give us, and have found a serene and childlike faith that stands firm in the midst of changing intellectual views. This third stage is strikingly akin to the first. It is the childlike simplicity of the truly great souls, of such not of complicated professors in the kingdom of heaven. It is a simplicity which is not naive, but enriched by a background of complex knowledge, not burdened or blinded by that complexity, but aware of it and sitting atop of it. If it has been given to you to attain this third mature stage of faith, you can voyage at will into arguments and discussions that are blasting at the second stage and be untouched by them, for your life is down deep upon a rock that is not founded upon argument and criticism and dispute. At this stage, one can differ radically with another person intellectually, yet love him because he too is basically devoted to feeding upon the bread of life, not primarily devoted to chemical analysis of that bread." What do you think of that? Oh my goodness. In this heated, divisive place that we are in not just our country, in the U.S., but in this world, with our geopolitical landscape being, well, I don't even know if I want to comment on it or use any kinds of adjectives to describe it and go there with it. But let's just say, is he spot on or what? I mean, talking about being able to sit in a place where you radically differ with another person intellectually, yet love him because he is basically devoted to feeding upon the bread of life, not primarily devoted to analyzing that bread or analyzing the chemistry of that bread. That's how we do it. I mean, there's a lot of teachers who have seen these 3 stages. I'm thinking, I think it's Walter Brueggemann who talks about orientation to ourselves and to our faith, and then a disorientation and then a reorientation. I believe it's Brueggemann. There's Richard Rohr who talks about order, disorder, and then reorder. Kelly here is talking about a similar thing. It's different stages of our faith. And sometimes when we sit, quote, under a teaching, or we're reading a book, or we're listening to someone like a YouTube channel like this, and you know that person, they love God, they're endeavoring to follow Christ, to be someone in the world who loves instead of hates, but yet you don't really get what they're saying, and it seems a little bit off. Sometimes it's not that things are off, it's that we're in really different stages, where we're in the first stage of our faith, that very primitive, childlike faith that Kelly was talking about, and someone else is in the third stage of their faith or the second stage of their faith. And we're thinking about different things, and we're being dealt with by the Holy Spirit of God in different ways. Have you ever experienced this? You who are listening, who are full of faith and following hard after the Lord, have you experienced this where you've gotten to a stage, you maybe didn't call it the mature stage or the third stage, but all of a sudden, like the disenchantment and disengagement with folks from that second stage, it's not there anymore. It's like you look at them and you love them. You can love them even though you disagree heartily with their politics. You disagree heartily with their what they're saying intellectually, some of their ideas. You disagree with a doctrine, and you just have a hard time talking to them. Well, and then all of a sudden you find yourself a few years later or a few months later in a place where those things don't quite matter as much anymore because something else matters more. And it's like you have begun to feast on what Kelly calls feasting on the bread of life. You're partaking of the B, the capital B, bread of life, the Lord himself. You're partaking of his divine life and you're feasting on it. And it's so fulfilling. Like the psalmist says, taste and see that the Lord is good. You could almost taste the goodness and the beauty of the Lord. The truth of God rings out through your soul. And it's not like those political differences or intellectual arguments don't matter at all. They're like they have no relevance. They might still be relevant and they're important, and maybe you're even still politically active. But it doesn't get in the way of the higher things. It doesn't get in the way of love. You've found your way to dig down deeply, to stand on that rock that paradoxically is higher than all of these other things. So like I almost want to say it's you get to a higher place. And I think that's what maturity is. When I was a kid, I used to think, or when I was like 18, I used to think, if I know 20 chapters by heart of the Bible and and memorize them and pray a certain way in a certain time every day in a certain amount of time and get involved in these 3 or 4 things in the church and really give my whole life over to service, when I can do that, that's maturity. No, I did that. That was not maturity. That was not maturity. But it wasn't futile. It wasn't useless. It was the first stage. It was the first stage for me. And so my heart goes out to especially some of my friends, some of my very dear friends who really, really struggle with dealing with the differences among their peers of political stances and intellectual beliefs. And it's wreaking havoc in some of their relationships. My heart goes out there. It's like there's another place to go. It's not a place that says, I don't care about what's right and wrong. I don't care about what's immoral and not moral, but I care, but I'm going to a different place. I can't stand there on the changing, the shifting moral table of what one culture says is right and another culture says is wrong. It's hard to understand. It's hard to even talk about, but I think it is worth talking about. I think it's worth talking about. What do you think about that? Any thoughts? Leave your thoughts and comments. I'd love to follow up with this and hear what you think, and if you're struggling with these things or if you have gone through them, what you think about these 3 stages: order, disorder, reorder. What does he call them? He calls, well, Brueggemann, as I told you, it's like orientation, disorientation, and reorientation. But he calls these primitive, the primitive stage. And then the second stage is stage of doubt and criticism. And then the third stage is that more mature stage of faith. Again, where you can voyage at will into arguments and discussion that are blasting at the second stage, but be untouched by them. Wouldn't you love to have that inner peace and calm? Wouldn't you love it? Be like, just wouldn't you love to have that? Well, that's ours. That's ours for the taking. That's part of the gift of God. That's part of what he has for us. I wish I could always stand there and know that and experience that. I wish I had that down. But guess what? I'm still in school with God. I'm still in school. I'm still a student. It's kind of what keeps me fresh and alive, knowing that I haven't learned it all. I don't know it all. Far from it, far from it. But I'm happy that I can be here and chat with you each week to talk about these things and listen to you and hear your comments and get into a little dialogue with you. Thanks for stopping by. This is Stephanie Bennett from The Secret Place. Have a great week. God bless you, friends.